I found an abandoned railroad spur line not too far away from an abandoned switching tower. If you want to check them out, then come along with me. We're going to get to the spur line in just a little bit, but sitting right beside an active and holding line is another abandoned switching tower. Concrete, still fully much intact, hasn't been used in decades, and once we do get inside, I have a few details I can share about it. Now, unlike the other ones we've documented, this one actually has the bottom windows boarded up. So I don't know if we could get inside. We're gonna find out. But they're almost all identical to each other. Two-story buildings. Some have a basement. All these holes right here is where either the cables or connecting rods would have been to connect out to the different linkages and switches for some history that used to exist right down there. All our concern about getting in is not a concern at all. We have an open door, or as I like to call it, open door policy. Before we head inside though, we'll just take a peek around the exterior. So it looks like they did make attempts to seal it up at one time. We know the bottom windows are sealed up. Top has one or two pieces of plywood. Door is wide open. And is there anything around back? Just the lower portion. So it looks like there is a lower basement level. I don't see an opening, at least from here. Maybe there's access on the inside, maybe not. But typically we find these with everything removed, just the bare bones. Looks like someone may have been living in there. But typically, I shouldn't say typically, some of them, when we do have basement access, that's where you would find a coal stove, a coal room, and underneath the armatures and cables for the levers that are upstairs. And upstairs would be all the, I keep mistaking if it's strong arm or Armstrong levers. And someone would be up there manning this 24/7 to throw the appropriate switches for the rails that were adjoined to this. Because back then they didn't have electronic switches, which is ultimately what phased these out and became obsolete. Anyone in here? So this one we can't get upstairs. There would have been a spiral staircase right here coming down to where we are. Most of them are removed, but we have been in some towers, at least one, where we were able to gain access to the upstairs based on the landscape was on an embankment. So we're forced to be ground level here, but I do have my 10-foot pole and my 360 camera, so we'll be able to at least get some visuals up there. But what we're seeing is, I don't know if there's an opening to this basement, but what we're seeing though is where this opening was, is where all the cables or levers would have been connected to through this bracket, down, and then out those holes right there. I have seen ones where they're below this floor, others where they're on the ground floor. You get a little bit of light in here too. It's kind of dim in certain areas, but it does look like someone has been living in here, or at least taking refuge in here temporarily. A lot of beer cans, milk crates, tables. There's a sheet there, blanket, some tarping. I don't know why that's hanging there like that. So the chimney would have been right there. Opening would have been a pipe here right in the corner and a stove feeding into that to heat this place. Yeah, I'm thinking this is more of a party spot now. There's just a lot of benches, milk crates, tons of beer cans, so probably just for locals, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone has stayed here overnight. Is there anything even behind that curtain? There's not. It almost made it seem like they were like covering up a doorway. There's someone's boot right here, or I should say pair of boots. So pretty dim in here. All the downstairs windows are boarded up, but you can see they were arched windows. And upstairs, well, we have that, I don't know what to call it, almost like a bay window that's pushed out over the edge so they could get better visuals of the rails and the train traffic. Would have been electricity in here. Conduit going up. Looks like something may have been mounted there. Another box right here. Yeah, and even the doorway itself, completely rounded off. So, round windows, round doors. Now, I have been in some of them where there's like square, actually here it is. I was just gonna say, usually there's an opening to the lower level. Yep, there it is. It is a trash pit now. I'm gonna take a peek, see if there's anything down here worth checking out besides a mound of crap and garbage here. Well, I mean, it's bigger than what I thought. We are, I'm sure there's no one behind me here. There's a lot of stuff down here, a lot of garbage. It's more like a landfill right now. Hopefully you can still see me. There's a beach ball down here. So, smell oil too. But with the shirt I'm wearing, which is, if we found a toy, it's officially abandoned. I think a beach ball would be considered a toy, but let me get you down here to show you what it looks like. Yeah, so here it is. It is a full basement. You can see where there was an opening there. Maybe where they brought coal in. And I don't know if there was exterior access to this room, or if it was just right where we are here with this hatch. But we're standing on a mound of garbage. But there's everything from like a metal cage there, might be for a kerosene heater, some chairs, a tire, lots of beer cans, some plates. So I think people are partying, hanging out here, and just disposing the garbage down here. It's like an old Pepsi. Is that an old Pepsi can or bottle right there? Looks like the old label. Now, before I give you a view upstairs with my other camera, I do want to tell you a few more details about where we are and why this tower does exist today. So, the area we're at was once known as Gravel Place. It was most popular and used between the 1880s and 1950, and it also had a railroad yard for the dl&w, which is the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad. The yard, turntable, roundhouse area was in that direction, which I'm going to show you once we do leave here. Now, the dl&w operated from 1851 to 1960, where in 1960 it merged with the Erie Railroad to form the Erie-Lackawanna. 1976, Conrail took over, but today, presently, it's owned and operated by DL, Delaware, Lackawanna. Now, since there was so many lines here with a yard, roundhouse, turntable, etc., they needed to have control of the switches nearby with a close vicinity to the rails and the activities. So this building was built here in 1910 as a mechanical switching tower. It had 32 levers upstairs for the mechanical interlocking system. Basically what it would consist of is an attendant upstairs. It was manned 24/7, having radio communication with the railroad and the yard area, having a switchboard and 32 levers with cables and armature going out to all those different levers going towards the yard direction. So if they got to call a line track 3, switch track 4 for either incoming or outgoing trains, or even just switching in the yard, this was necessary to accomplish that without having to physically get out and switch each one by hand at each particular switch. So it's done at one somewhat remote location, but it's still pretty close to the yard activity. But this became obsolete because around the 1940s, 1950s, electronic switches came into play, which made this no longer necessary. They can control those switches from a more remote location, farther away, and have more control over switches. So these became no longer necessary, and they now just sit here as a reminder of our railroading past. Looks pretty shady though. I'll give it a better inspection. I don't know how I missed that, but there is a makeshift ladder right here. So locals, probably kids, are getting up there. Yeah, it's hanging on by cheap wire. Probably not made for someone my size. Probably better for some lightweight kid. So I'll show you it. I'm not gonna go up there. We don't need to. We got the view at the camera. But yeah, kids are getting up there. I don't feel comfortable with that ladder by myself. If I was to slip and fall, there's a lot of hazards here, rusty metal, nails, so on and so forth. Need any onion powder? Must be the pantry area right here. You can also see, which I missed before, this is another electrical area, conduit, a lot of old wiring coming through. So maybe an old fuse panel here. But here's the ladder. So they have a tie, which is stable, with these cheap, almost looks like trim nailed to it. And then it's going up to right here, which again is just hanging on by a cheap wire around the beam. So I'm sure it is safe, but being by myself, being a bigger guy, I'm not gonna risk it, especially since we already got the view upstairs. But rest assured, people are getting up there. I'm gonna give it one more once over before we do depart. I forgot to tell you too, this I can't take credit for. I am taking credit for the spur line we're gonna go to, but this particular switching tower was brought to my attention because I filmed something about a month ago, not too far away from here. It was an abandoned facility where I stumbled upon someone living there. They made some noise, got my attention, and we saw an upstairs room with a curtain, windows blocked off. We let them go, but we did explore that facility. When that video came out though, there was definitely one, maybe two individuals who commented and said, hey, if you were to go further down the line, past those tanker cars, there's an old switching tower there. I didn't know about it, really easy to get to, and here we are. So thanks to the viewers who did share it with me. But if you are into these towers like I am, find them historically interesting and fascinating, and especially seeing what they're like today, well, this only tells part of the story because obviously it's no longer in use and it's well past its prime of how it used to look. But if you continue watching until later in the video, in this same town, or at least close by, I believe, is a restored switching tower. And that way you'll be able to tell not only how they look now as they're abandoned, but also how they used to look with it being restored. And just outside the switching tower, look right there. Old telegraph pole. What had all the insulators screwed on there. Looks like it is picked clean, but the pole still stands today. I'm now going to show you a 1959 map of this area. On the map is the tower we just came from. As we go north, there is the roundhouse turntable area. And by this time, looks like it was no longer in service. Looks like it was kind of on the outs. Well, fast forward to 1992, transformed quite a bit. 2024, even more changes. Here in 2026, this is what it looks like today. This signal bridge was here back in that photo. Turntable roundhouse was right there. It's now a modern day factory. So there's no remnants of it left at all. Everything's completely gone. There is a holding area with a tanker car or two over there, which looks like it still gets serviced by this railroad. But beyond this was the yard area. So all in that direction, past this, was all different lines, not only for the yard, but for servicing different industries. So there was things in that direction serviced, things over here, and all of it was controlled by the switching tower just down there. So it was pretty close proximity to all the action, including the main hub of activity of the yard, turntable, and roundhouse. And as you can see, the line closest to us is that holding line that the tanker cars are on. But it does go back to a few more lines back there. But where we want to go, not sure why they're beeping the horn. Where we want to go though is back in this direction, not along the tracks, but behind this facility. I believe there's an abandoned spur line back there. Okay, we cleared behind all the fenced in property area. We're now in the clear wooded section. And yep, I found the abandoned spur line. Do you see it? It's over there. Now, one interesting observation is that I didn't notice the spur line on that 1959 map. So either it didn't exist at that time, it was added later on, or just kind of blends in with the surroundings. But I'm gonna show you a 2005 image where this stands out the most in this area. And what was its purpose? That I do not know, but what I do know though is that it did connect up to the yard area, which basically is no longer there. And for what I could tell, it's pretty intact. It dead ends right here. And nothing has ridden on these rails in many, many decades. Here we are. So if it wasn't for the help of letting me know about that switching tower, I wouldn't have found this. This became a bonus find. And we should easily be able to find some information on the rails as far as build date, manufacturing location. There's not even a bump stop here. It just dead ends into a mound of material. So it literally just stops right there. Now, as far as I know, there was nothing back here that was being serviced. So a couple thoughts that come to mind: this could have been a holding line for a nearby facility or for part of the yard. It could have been used to clear a switch area, or maybe it did service something that isn't showing up on the maps. That I don't know. But what I do know though is that it's basically back here, pretty well preserved, and not terribly far away from the active lines over there, maybe 50 yards. So I'm gonna walk it for a little bit. I think it does go through some thicker woods up ahead. There is, I believe, another facility further up too. There's a small chance it could have serviced that. Now, what I was able to follow online is that this went straight ahead a good ways and eventually curved left and met up with the yard mainline area. So this is pretty well weathered, but you can still see a few things. So looks like maybe 1896 or 1898 right here. What's it say after? It looks like a P. Oh, Penna, like Pennsylvania. Yeah, it does say Pennsylvania. Then right here, I do see 1918, so, and 10, 11, 12, so that's 12, December 1918. That's what it looks like right there. I don't see the manufacturing unless it's something to do with Pennsylvania. If you have insight, if it's like Bethlehem Steel or something else, but usually I see OH for Open Hearth. I don't see that. But I do see conflicting dates though. Maybe I'm reading that wrong. I don't know. If you happen to see better than what I'm looking at here. If I do find another clear section, I'll inspect it again. I'm gonna make some headway, walk it for a little bit, and see what it looks like further up. Some pretty good snowball snow. You know, honestly, this doesn't look like in bad condition at all. This gravel stone here, or ballast, doesn't look all that old. There's absolutely no sheen on the rails, and there's several large trees laying over them. So, was this put in the early 2000s? Perhaps. I mean, there's not a whole lot of large trees growing in the gauge. Rails and ties, for the most part, are in decent shape, as is the ballast. I just don't know why they put this here. I don't think it was from the old railroad days of dl&w. Looking a little more rougher here. Nature has reclaimed a bit more. Oh, look what I found. You know what this is? The innards of a television. It's old Zenith. Can even see where the antenna used to be right there. It's like a travel model, a little bit portable with the carry handle there. Yep, as I expected, there is another facility back here. So we're not going to go too much further, but where we are, there's nothing posted right here. But you can see there's no way trains are coming through here or have been through here anytime recently. I kind of retract my statement. There are some larger trees growing right here. It's actually in better shape further away down there than it is up here. It's an old box or a chest right here. It's got a chain hanging out of it. Like an old tool chest or something for the railroad, possibly. Oh, no way. Look what I found. Found a switch. What does that say? Looks like it's backwards. MEHELHTCE. Oh, Bethlehem. Bethlehem switch. There it is right there. Bethlehem Steel Company, it's stamped. So, mechanical switch right here, which, yeah, now we know. This was created to clear a switch. That was one of my speculations. We have confirmation. And what was it clearing it for? It looks like the rails that are switching off are going to that facility. So that was serviced at one time by rail. This line that keeps going does go out to the main line and the old yard. So we answered our questions. We solved the mystery. This doesn't show up though on the Rail Guide app, which made it more intriguing for me, as it coming up as a potentially abandoned railroad spur line. So without a doubt, no trains are coming through here in a few decades. They'd have to pass through this to clear the switch to go into that facility. So I'm not going to walk it anymore because we are getting close to the property. Want to be respectful of that. But neat to see that this is out here. I think it was added after 1959, although it shows up really clear in 2005. That may have been the last time it was used. There's no way trains came back here anytime within the last 10, 15 years. That's the win in my book. We found the spur line. Oh, wait. There's another line right here. So before I get sidetracked, we found the spur line. We were able to get some partial information off of it. We found out why it's there to clear a switch for that facility. And then it hasn't been used in at least 1 to 2 decades, if not longer. 2026, it's pretty clear on 2005. So if it was used around then, give or take a couple of years, that's roughly 2 decades that this has not been in service or used. But for the most part, aside from here with all the tree fall, it's holding up pretty well. But I just stumbled upon another rail here, actually almost tripped over it. So there may have been more lines back here too. This may or may not have been part of the yard. I don't see the other rail for that. Not to say it's not here, but I'm only finding that rail, which, is this still here? It ends right here. Yep, that rail ends right there. So maybe it's just a piece of a rail being stored here or displaced here at some point, and it just got covered by nature. I don't see any other rails lining up to it, and it's not connected to that. It's just a one-off rail. I was checking this clearing here. There's just some numbers, like a serial number stamped on there, but over here, I think we may have found what we're looking for. So right here, probably don't need the flashlight. Bethlehem Open Hearth. It actually says the words Open Hearth instead of OH. It's like 105C or 1050, 1917, and I don't see tally marks. But we're getting some clear confirmation here. This might be the pound per rail. It looks like 105C. Pound per yard. But definitely Open Hearth, Bethlehem plant right there. So that's well preserved, stands out clear as day, literally and figuratively. Well, as promised, we went from an abandoned switching tower to a restored switching tower. Look at this beauty. Stark contrast to what we saw earlier today. This one was built by Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad in 1908. Operator controlled track switches and signals from here using many mechanical levers. Same thing we learned about in the old abandoned tower took place in this one as well. Now, you can see some similarities, also some differences. The one we saw was built out of concrete, a little bit longer in shape, but still a two-story structure, had a lot of windows up on top, still had switches inside, served the same purpose, but different styling. This one, at least on the exterior, from what we can see, is made out of wood. Don't know what's beneath it. But I believe at certain times they have this open to the public for tours. Let me see if we get some more information on it here. Yeah, so I know it's hard to see with the glare, but there's all the switches. There's a switch operator sitting upstairs. Here's circa 1910. And there's the tower where it says open with Christmas lights. Now it does state this tower is open certain events and also per request or appointment if you want, I guess you want to get a private tour. But this was restored and, as we learned, played a big part in the railroad history of East Stroudsburg area. Former dl&w, now DL, and the lines came right through by our old tower and this tower here. This one definitely a bit nicer looking, but still historically accurate with its restoration, and maybe in the future I'll come back, give you a tour of it on the inside. But I just want to show you the night and day difference between long ago abandoned for decades to a pristine looking one from the same era. Now here is a good representation of what I was explaining earlier, where there were those holes. Not as many here. The holes are still there. Would have been, I said, either cables or armature coming out, connecting to the different lines going to different switches. So it's like these ones would have went off in this direction for all the switches down there. There's even an old signal tower down there. And these ones, if there was holes, probably would have controlled this area down here. And back in the day, there would have been many more lines than what are existing today. You can see even an old line cut off here. So it would have been lines probably pretty close to the tower here and even on the other side. So just a fraction of what used to exist, but still enough to tell you a story of what was going on back in the day. Yeah, looking through the window, all the levers are still connected upstairs, I believe. They're coming down, going right outside. So it is a pretty close representation of what things would have been like. And I'm happy to see that. And one more thing right next to that is an old depot. This one is labeled the Dansbury Depot. I don't know if that's original or not. If it was, obviously would have been serviced by rail. Could have been for passengers and or freight. And if it's not original, well, it's a good representation. Beautiful building, has an iconic depot look to it, and not uncommon to see them near junctions and crossings and other busy, bustling areas, especially in towns like this that were synonymous for a lot of railroad history. As you can hear on Christmas vacation, it's a beaut, Clark, it's a beaut. I would say today's adventure was highly successful. First off, thanks to the viewers who did reach out to me from my previous video of this area, telling me about that switching tower, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have known about it probably anytime soon, although I have faith I would have found it eventually. We got to see what it looks like today, long after it was built, and although it's more of a party spot, it still has a story to tell, still has history tied to it, and hopefully the views I was able to give you both upstairs and below were helpful in seeing what they used to look like back in the day. But if it wasn't for going to that location, I wouldn't have found that old abandoned spur line. And not knowing anything about it, we answered a lot of questions along the way, especially with some dates of where the steel was rolled and why it was placed there to begin with. So we learned a lot, got to see, at least on map images, where the old turntable roundhouse used to be, and know that a lot more used to exist than exists today. And finally able to come back here to see a beautifully restored switching tower, similar in style, some differences, not as many levers, but still keeps history alive, and you're able to come here, take pictures of it, and even tour it on certain occasions. And at least helps you understand why they were created, what they were used like, and to find out that they became obsolete due to upgrades in technology. Electronic switches took away that position and made those buildings no longer necessary. So hope you appreciated what I was able to show you and to tell you about these areas. And more importantly, would love to hear your thoughts on today's adventure. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.